Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching Startup Central right here on ET Now with me, Sumita Kareed. Today on the show, we put the spotlight on Skyroot. Well, India's space startup Skyroot has scripted a new chapter in India's space program with Vikram-1. It's become the country's first private orbital launch, making India the third only country to achieve this feat through a private enterprise. Now, developed by Skyroot Aerospace, Vikram-1 is designed to launch small satellites into low Earth orbit at a lower cost with faster turnaround times than traditional rockets. In fact, Vikram-1 also demonstrates how private companies can complement the efforts of ISRO while promoting self-reliance and economic growth through space technology. In fact, to talk on this feat, we have two very exclusive guests. Joining me now is Naga Bharat Dhaka, the co-founder of Skyroot. Along with him is his co-founder, Pawan Kumar Chana, who's also the company's CEO. Thank you very much, Pawan and Bharat, for joining us here on ET Now. Many congratulations. What a stunning feat, a stunning set of events that we saw unfold on Saturday. And in fact, your team includes extremely young engineers. Then you got a call from the Prime Minister himself. How did you make this all possible? What was going on in your mind? Have you been having sleepless nights before this operation took off?
Yeah. So in fact, the previous night, both of us couldn't sleep. And in the last few weeks also, there was a lot of sleepless nights and, many days where the sleep was very less. So that is absolutely required for every rocket launch, especially the first ones, because you see a lot of challenges on a daily basis, which needs to be resolved in real time to meet the launch window. So that way, we had less sleep, more interesting challenges to solve. And also, in fact, having a very young team, but it's a very diverse team. That means that's what really helped us. For example, we have people people who are fresh from college across various types of institutions across the country, and we also have a lot of people from industry, other industries, not from the space sector. More than 95% of our talent has never done anything in space before. So they all come here and subject to the rigor of rocket engineering. And then they become like rocket scientists. And then we see a diverse set of talent across, from freshers to experienced people. And we also have several veterans, who are even 70 years old, who are actually advising or who are also contributing to the things based on the wisdom they had before. They have worked in the space program before, etc. So it's a diverse thing, as low as 20-year-olds. And many of them are in 20s. That's why you see the average is 28. But then that's already so very young. I think the diversity in the talent that did a lot of contribution, with respect to the launch, because we see from a different angles and different lens.
And Bharat, isn't that what makes this feat even more incredible? Because it was pulled off by a bunch of very young people in your team. I want to know, before we delve further into the operation, what was your parents' reaction, given that both of you actually started off the company when there was not much interest in the space ecosystem and there were some reservations from your families?
Yeah, sure. No, of course. They've been, of course, as parents, anyone will be highly concerned. That's a single motivation, a sense of concern towards their kids' well-being. So even when we started, it's with the concern they ask about the scope and possibility of it. And yesterday, it was just truly. As when they'll always be concerned, even when the hold comes, I was just asking them, because we just came back to Hyderabad and asking their interaction, their experience, and they felt very relieved. A sense of relief is what at least my mom said after the result, because with a lot of tension, just knowing the outcome, sometimes good or bad, gives you a great sense of relief. And here it's much better than good, and she was both happy and quite relieved from the tension she had, at least. Yeah.
All right, and I can see relief on both your faces as well. But Pawan, before we delve deeper into policy support, your growth plans, let's first address the basics first on what has really happened and why is Vikram-1 such a big feat? What does it really mean for India's space ambitions?
So Vikram One, what happened yesterday was, the first time a private company has designed, manufactured, and brought the orbital class rocket to the launch pad, and successfully lifted off. And in the very first attempt, has put satellites into orbit. I mean, this is a feat of global importance, because the world needs more launches to space, and there's more demand for launching of satellites and less rockets which can launch them. And then this is the first, and also rockets are extremely complex, especially orbital rockets, which have the capacity to put satellites into orbit, are like, very, very complex in technology, and almost every company in the world required multiple attempts and undergo that process of learning to achieve an orbit in the achieve orbit. And like, for example, the famously, if you see, like, SpaceX succeeded in reaching orbit in the fourth attempt, right? So it's a very complex set of engineering, and then we are, I think, very fortunate, and thanks to our team, which that we made it in the very first go. So that is very significant. And then now world will have more access to space. And third is that an Indian company, is creating more access to space. That is also like, aligns with India's ambitions to become like a very strong spacefaring nation in the world, and with the government opening up the sector to private players recently, right? So this is all a multiple significance. I think from creating more capability to space and being the first one in India to be able to do so, and doing it in the very first attempt as well.
That's right. In fact, Bharat, the one big difference that this operation has made is with respect to the cost effectiveness of the campaign. How were you able to make that happen? How were you able to control the costs?
So, with respect to the India space program, of course, thanks to the decades of space program, the key reason why the entire Vikram development has been cost effective is thanks to the Indian space program. In the first place, they built the manufacturing ecosystem that is required, like a huge number of suppliers. We have close to 400 unique suppliers that have contributed to this mission, and all that supplier base has been developed. So as we speak, to develop the rocket, we didn't have the need to invest in the capital infrastructure required to make one particular part, because the industry for that part is already developed thanks to the ISRO and other government organizations that have developed that manufacturing ecosystem, aerospace grade manufacturing capability. So one of the key reasons is a lot of developmental cost, capital investment required for the Vikram development has been saved thanks to the supplier ecosystem that's already been built. And one other key reason is thanks to the space reforms, we have had the opportunity and access to the public infrastructure in ISRO space centers, where we could test our propulsion system. Just for example, our stage 1 propulsion system is one of the largest propulsion systems, which we cannot test anywhere else in India but for the space center Sriharikota, and we could use their test facility to test it. All this enabling policy to the public infrastructure access also has saved us a lot of money to build the test facilities that we otherwise would need to build ourselves if we don't have access to. All this led to a lot of cost optimization and like saved us a ton of cost in our developmental effort of Vikraman, and thereby the operational cost also has reduced so far, and with very minimal developmental expenditure, we could come to this milestone.
And that really is a shot in the arm for India's space ambitions. But when we talk about the space story unfolding in India as of now, well, India has ambitions to sort of take its share in the space economy to $44 billion by 2023 from the current $8 billion. What is the kind of policy support that the industry needs at the moment? We do know that the space economy opened up a couple of years back, but what more is needed to sort of compete in the global space arena?
See, in fact, like right now, InSpace has been the nodal agency in India for space, for private, for boosting the private space ecosystem, and also they are the regulator and the promoting agency. So InSpace has done a phenomenal job in, streamlining all the regulation processes, set up authorization procedures, promote the sector in a big way, bring new government initiatives. All that they have done like a phenomenal job so far. In fact, our launch also has been enabled by them in a very efficient way. They do it. So that way, I think the regulatory challenge has been resolved. In fact, We got like in record time, we got all the permissions without any wait, and everything is done very streamlined fashion. But what I think can really help in boosting to the next level is where government becoming a strong anchor customer. Like for example, even if you see the SpaceX journey, where they had a $1.6 billion contract, when they were just about to reach the first successful launch. And so that's the kind of support which the government also takes the risk. Even if it is in the very early phases, they take a risk on few companies, and then enable them to grow into very large companies, and it will help in sustainability as well. So it will, when government becomes an anchor customer, you can have a very long and sustainable journey in building the space company. So that way, I think government becoming an anchor customer will boost the entire ecosystem because assured revenues will flow in, and that will create a lot of stability and sustainability. And government is also thinking about this in a big way. So they're slowly starting in few things. They recently started something called a PPP model for Earth observation satellites, where 12 satellites will be launched in a public-private partnership. This will allow multiple companies to build satellites and launch their satellites as well. So that way, I think government is starting to think in this direction. But I think boosting this part will help the whole ecosystem.
But there has been participation from the government as far as AI is concerned, and now in the semiconductor startups as well. It remains to be seen how the government really sort of takes up this idea as you're proposing. But Bharat, you want to be the Uber for space after this first test flight. How soon now will you be getting into commercial flights, and how many more launches are you targeting in the coming few months?
Sure. So basically, the small dedicated launch is often compared to the Uber for space because the unique destination reaching capability that the dedicated small rockets provide, and that's the analogy they're playing out. And with respect to the full-fledged commercial opportunity, most of the commercial opportunity will be unleashed once we prove two reliable launches to space, and so that the full-fledged commercial potential of the rocket can be unleashed after that. But the initial 2 to 3 launches we'll still call them the developmental flights, where we learn from the flights, and also they'll be partially commercial in to the extent that because we will not end up fully filling them and charging the customer to the fullest extent, because there are the developmental flight, and there's a sense, there's the amount of risk they're taking to be able to fly in the initial 1 or 2 missions. This is the scope of it, and once we prove 2 to 3 successful launches to orbit, the full-fledged commercial potential will be unleashed. And from next year onwards, we plan to achieve a launch cadence of 1 launch a month also.
All right, so 1 launch per month. Pawan, do you agree with that? And what's the next big milestone you're looking at?
In fact, the Prime Minister has inaugurated our new factory called Infinity Campus. So that is that we have invested. We have invested the infrastructure to be able to manufacture 1 rocket a month already. But we're yet to reach that cadence because we have to see the data from the flights, make necessary improvements, and then get to mass production. So that way, hopefully, we are targeting maybe sometime maybe next year, sometime next year, where we'll be able to produce 1 rocket a month.
Right, Pawan. So, of course, commercialization is something that will be your focus for the company. But are you looking at further fundraise to support your ambitions? And would you be looking at IPOing anytime soon?
So, see, right now, our core focus is to get to regular commercial launches. So that and a steady revenue pool, from the launches is a core requirement right now. So I think we're not thinking on anything else right now. We're just focused on getting into the commercial, and we also raised a recent round, as you know, and then we have capital for some good time right now, and we'll also revenues, good revenues will start coming in from the commercial launches as well. So we are not thinking on any other direction right now. For now, we want to get the launches, successful in a very steady rate.
All right, on that very optimistic note, let me come to you, Bharat. Bharat, I have to draw your attention to the reported exodus from ISRO. Given that you yourself are a scientist at the organization, what, in your opinion, is behind this, exodus from the organization, and do these current events concern you?
No, not per se. Like we prefer to not comment on this in particular, but generally the number of as you know, ISRO is a 16,000 big organization. Like if you take it as a percentage, it will be very minor. So actually, there's enough opportunity and there's enough demand with respect to the like most of the people who might be leaving also we need not go to the like it's always been there, and people might go to other domains also. It's not that they're going out to work in space domain outside, because space is generally as a multidisciplinary. A mechanical engineer can find opportunities in any other domain. Like in that sense, we need to see it as a holistically. And there's enough, as you know, if you see as a percentage of people, it will look very minor, way below the normal attrition rates in any industry also. And that's all we can say. And like with respect to us as Skyroot, like we also have a lot of diverse talent. Like most of the people, 90% of the people who joined Skyroot are from adjacent industries who never worked in space industry before. So so this is something it can be trained for. Like a lot of fresh talent, a lot of adjacent industry can come with a architecture defined. They can work towards the common engineering goal. So just to give you a...
Okay, Pawan, your thoughts? Nothing to be concerned about?
No, I don't think so, because like Bharat mentioned, it's a very small portion of the entire workforce. And that is like regular, in fact, it's far, far below than, any other organization. Typically, it's a very far less attrition. I don't think it'll have much, effect overall, if you see. But I think, like Bharat said, the flow is quite common in any organization.
Taking a look at this very interesting conversation that I had. Well, over the past decade, India's global capability center ecosystem has undergone a remarkable transformation. Once seen primarily as operational support hubs, GCCs today are driving innovation, leading AI and digital transformation in the country. And India has emerged as one of the most important destinations for global enterprises that are looking to build the future. So the question is, what is powering this momentum? What opportunities lie ahead for businesses, the talent in the country, and the economy? And what will define the next chapter of India's GCC growth story? In fact, I had this very interesting conversation with Rohan Lobo. He's a partner and GCC industry leader at Deloitte South Asia. Take a look.
So we are seeing the growth of GCCs at a pace unprecedented. In the last year, there were nearly 300 companies that set up GCCs in India. In the preceding 5 years, there were about 500 GCCs. So the pace of growth of GCCs is rising. One of the good things about GCCs is whether there is a tough economic environment or a good economic environment, both are drivers of GCCs. In a tough economic environment, people are looking at reducing the cost of their operations and the cost of developing new products and engineering and research and development. So that is a driver for GCCs to come to India, or companies to come to India. And on the other hand, in a plenty, when the economic conditions are good, we are looking at companies looking at more discretionary spend in technology, and therefore there is significantly more work coming over to India. What we are, if you look at how GCC grew in India, it's started off in the early 80s with text instruments coming in. And then you had these cities of Bangalore and Hyderabad that had a lot of public sector undertakings, a lot of government establishments, the BELs, BHELs, BMLs, the DRDOs, and all the laboratories under it. It attracted a lot of diverse people from across India who demanded great education for their people, for their children, and those children went into IT services, and then they went into US at a time when there was technology work happening in the US, and the workers were traveling to the US. Workers were going to where the work was, and that that trend is now reversing because the amount of work is so much that you need to take work to where the workers are, which is where the talent in India plays a huge role.
Absolutely, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. But Rohan, give us some trends in terms of the occupancy levels that you're seeing. As of now, we have seen GCC concentration in places like Pune, Hyderabad, Bengaluru. But are you seeing any changes in that mix? What is it that you've observed?
So we are seeing the growth again in tier 1 cities. We're seeing Bangalore, Hyderabad, Pune, Chennai, and we're seeing the second operation being considered in a tier 2 city. What is important when we look at tier 2 cities is that it needs to be proximate to a tier 1 city, because if some global stakeholders want to come in, they need some connectivity, they need all of that. But also it becomes difficult for GCCs to send in supervisory staff. While the entry-level staff are willing to work in a tier 2 city, it's the supervisory staff who may have a family of their own, whose kids may be going to certain schools. For them to relocate to a tier 2 city, there are some challenges.
But when you talk about tier 2, there are challenges. But today when we heard the IT secretary was essentially mentioning that, it's tier 2 towns and cities that are going to sort of bring further growth, especially as far as GCCs are concerned. And of course, the concentration is not only going to remain to urban centers. But you speak of challenges. So do you think that's a possibility? And if that's indeed a possibility, then what is the kind of demand that you see?
Yeah. So first of all, I think when I say that today 2,100 GCCs are there, expected to be 5,000 GCCs in the next 4 years, that's doubling of the number of GCCs. So will tier 1 cities be able to handle that volume in very short period of time? The answer is clearly no. So, and that's why this conversation is happening at policy level to say what could be the ideas. Perhaps a twin city model, perhaps a city that is proximate to a tier 1 city. So for example, if you have Bangalore, if you just go a little bit north of Bangalore, you may have a property that is available at significantly lower prices for developers, and at the same time just about an hour's distance away from the main airport. If that becomes a hotbed of development that is 360 degrees holistic, then tier 2 cities could become a real possibility.
Absolutely. So let me then ask you, since you talk about tier 2 cities and all, but you also mentioned about the fact that and there has been that kind of conversation today that GCC demand is not only going to be restricted to the IT sector. And this is what I want to ask you. I mean, if IT demand remains restricted, given the kind of headwinds that the industry is facing on account of AI and of course on account of US's policies on H1B, why do you think that's not going to impact GCCs? Because as of now, one would assume or one would see that a huge chunk of this demand is coming in from the IT sector.
Yeah. So GCCs do 3 kinds of work. One is they look at business processes and run those business processes. Second is they look at IT, where you're doing design, build and operate of IT. And the third one is engineering, research and development, right? So what AI can do is that the repetitive processes, the processes that are traditionally low-end, transactional and repetitive in nature, those are most likely going to be disrupted because AI is going to pick that up and completely transform that. The headwind on that front is the cost of AI, because AI is subject to all the monopolistic economical situations. Power is a restriction, chips are a shortage, skills are a shortage, all of that, right? So the cost of AI as it gets built out over the next 2-3 years versus the benefits, economic benefits of replacing manual labor with transactional work with AI is a real question that companies are looking at. But the big opportunity I see is in physical AI and AI helping solve broken customer journeys. So if you look at a lot of the customer journeys across many companies across the world, they're broken. Why are they broken? Because technology doesn't talk to each other. AI can discover the reason for those technologies not to talk to each other, create the intermediary systems and make them talk to each other and build. Who's going to build that? GCCs in India. Absolutely. The second thing is many companies don't know what they have built. They don't know what is in their environment because it's been built over many years. People have left. There's no documentation. Now AI can go into code and understand the business requirements. Understand what is the logic of everything that's been built. Once you understand what's built, then you can move into simplification exercises and modernization exercises, and I think that's going to lead to a significantly more amount of technology work that needs to get implemented.
Right, absolutely. And of course, how sort of AI gets intertwined into the overall GCC opportunity, that remains to be seen. But this is what the IT Secretary today stated, that of course we need to move away from roles that are of low value, and that can be automated to, of course, achieving higher skills. My final question to you, Rohan, is essentially about the policy domain, right? I mean, do we need a separate central policy for GCCs? Because as of now, the government of India is giving a push to the GCC, overall economy via ease of doing business, mandates, and of course there are separate SEZs also. States have their own policies. Do we need a separate dedicated central policy? If yes, then what is the what is it that you would sort of propose?
So there is a need for integrating many government departments and their processes into one seamless process for that a GCC experiences. So when a company comes into India, there are about 32 odd approvals required. Those are at the state level, those are at the central level, those are at various institutions, and what's needed is sort of a single window clearance with digital credentials, because the same documents are sent across to each of these departments. So some kind of digital credential and a single window clearance to bring all of this in a seamless way.